Good afternoon. Welcome to Unlocking Student Engagement with SEL. My name is Asia Abrams, and I'm a proud mother of three and an innovative educator dedicated to creating lifelong learners through holistic whole child approaches. I'm currently a multi-tiered systems of support reading coach in a large study funded by the U.S. Department of Education with MPS. In this position, I cultivate teachers and administrators in using MTSS to support the whole school and using strategies that support students in reading. Throughout my career, I have taught in grades K, first, second, third, and sixth grade. I am also a former coach with the Alabama Reading Initiative. This experience gave me great perspective on childhood development through various pivotal grade levels, as well as experience in engaging educators in the science of reading. I'm an active member in my community and serve as a Montgomery Chamber of Commerce ambassador. I believe in collaborating with parents and stakeholders to support educational achievements. We're going to move right into our agenda. We're going to start with an icebreaker. We're going to talk about what is SEL, how can we use SEL to increase student engagement, and then there are turnaround activities embedded in each section. So starting off with our icebreaker, name one emotion you're bringing to this workshop. State your name and share out. You can also write this inside of the chat box. Good evening. Name an emotion that you are bringing to this workshop. A smile, okay. Bringing happiness. Hunger, oh my goodness, yes, me as well. Happiness. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what I'm bringing to this workshop. I am bringing, one more, we have a few more. Exhaustion, oh my goodness, ACAP is right around the corner. You guys are so right. It's the end of the school year is upon us. I heard we had about 42 days or something, maybe somewhere in there, a month. When we know how people feel around us, we are more equipped to interact with them better. I'm bringing eagerness to this workshop today. And that's because I'm eager to tell the world, like, what is SEL and how can we embed this inside of our classrooms and in our buildings? Some believe that SEL is basically about our ability to know if a student is hungry or how that affects their mood towards learning. And it's important to acknowledge and be aware of a student's hierarchy of needs. But SEL goes deeper into building emotional intelligence for not only adults, but children as well. So today I'm eager to share with you what SEL is and how we can incorporate it into our work with our students. What is SEL? Social emotional learning is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. They feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. We can see from this definition that social emotional learning is very important, not just for children, but also for maybe adults as well who have not mastered these skills. So the more we know about social emotional learning, the earlier we can instill these skills into children who will then go out into our communities and be a benefit by having these skills. Why does it matter? SEL advances educational equity and excellence through all school, family, and community partnerships. The goal of SEL is to establish learning environments and experiences that feature trusting and collaborative relationships, meaningful curriculum, and ongoing evaluation. SEL can help address various forms of inequity and empower youth and adults to co-create thriving schools and contribute to a safe and just communities. SEL is a framework made by CASTEL. CASTEL is the nation's leading organization advancing the development of academic, social, and emotional competence for all students. CASTEL stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And this has actually been around for years. And this is CASTEL's framework. So this framework takes a systematic approach that emphasizes the importance of establishing equitable learning environments and coordinating practices across 4 key settings: the classroom, schools, homes, and communities. And at the core of that, you can see that social emotional learning is there. And then the components of that is surrounded by it as well. Here are the 4 core skills of SEL: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. But we want to look at these 5 core skills and make sure that we are providing instruction and opportunities for students to grow in these areas on a daily basis within our classrooms and within our buildings. Self-management is managing the emotions and behaviors to achieve one's goals. Self-awareness is recognizing one's emotions and values, as well as one's strengths and challenges. Responsible decision-making is making those ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behavior. Relationship skills is forming positive relationships, working in teams, dealing effectively with conflict. And then social awareness is showing understanding and empathy for others. We're gonna dive in deep to each one of those core skills today. But before we do that, we're gonna talk about how SEL works hand in hand with MTSS. MTSS is embedded in our Alabama Literacy Act implementation guide. It encompasses RTI, PBIS. It encompasses our curriculum and how we collaborate as teams within our buildings. And it takes all of these things under an umbrella. And it just, it ensures that when we have all these things in place, that we can support all learners, the whole child. It takes a problem-solving approach in looking at students' academics and behavior. And there's an ongoing decision-making process embedded in it as well, as to how we can provide multiple tiers of supports for students. So MTS program is designed to use data-driven problem solving to promote school improvement through research-based academic and social emotional practices. SEL is an important component of MTSS, of that process, because deregulated students, they struggle to learn until they regulate. So if they are just off track emotionally, they won't be able to take in instruction until they're able to regulate. So adding in SEL data alongside behavioral and academic data will allow us to have more conversations about the learner's needs. It also provides another arena for providing interventions to students to regulate so that they can learn, to self-regulate. What does that look like? You guys are familiar with RTI. You may be familiar with RTI and how you may see tiers of support. The same thing goes for behavior, and then the same thing could be true for SEL support. Your tier 1 support is always going to be universal. This is something that everyone gets. So if I gave a tier 1 support to SEL, I would have school-wide attendance programs or school-wide PBIS activities or school-wide yoga days or mindfulness Mondays. Your tier 2 approach is always going to be more targeted. It won't be all students in tier 1 because most of your students are going to be able to regulate their emotions just from the school-wide approach to social emotional learning, or the school-wide approach to behavior, or the school-wide approach to academics, or the classroom approach to academics. 80% of your students would probably thrive in that area, not needing tier 2 support. But for students that display an emotional need, maybe through behavior that you may witness, or maybe even from other check-ins that you may do, they may need a more targeted intervention to manage their emotions. And then there are some cases where we have students that need tier 3 support, which is an intensive intervention. Here are strategies for building SEL into MTSS and RTI. How do we just embed all of this into each other? One, we could use SEL to strengthen the tier 1 foundation. And that means that the whole school takes SEL into account, and we have activities embedded in our buildings, our infrastructure that support social and emotional learning. Or from a classroom standpoint, the classroom has universal, meaning things for everyone that builds upon social emotional learning. There is Fun Fridays, there are Wellness Wednesdays. Those are things that you would see universal. Everybody has the opportunity to experience this, and it helps most of our students. You could incorporate SEL into decision-making processes. When I have students that need tier 2 support or tier 3 support for behavior, I could cross-triangulate that data with what I'm seeing academically. I could cross-triangulate that with progress monitoring, or just even how they are maybe in other classrooms as well. So we want to take social emotional learning into our decision-making processes with what supports we give students to help them. We want to build SEL supports into our tier interventions. And then we want to practice data inquiry. When we have our PLC meetings and our data meetings, we're always asking questions. Why is this way? And then finding the answer. The data says that it's because of this, or it could be because of that. We want to always ask and answer questions ourselves. And then we want to make a plan to support, and then we want to take action. RTI behavior support and SEL. We could use SEL screener data. We can triangulate that social emotional learning with academics and behavior. We can identify students and refer them to a tier 2 of SEL supports, which could just be maybe small group coping strategies. And we'll talk about some of those today that take place within the classroom. Or if students need a tier 3 level of support, we could have a counselor step in and do 5-minute walks with the counselor, or convos with the counselor during your intervention block, because maybe they're not struggling academically, but maybe they might need an intervention during intervention time where it's giving them support for their emotional learning. And then collaborating with our counselors for that tier 3 SEL support, like just stated. In tier 1, it could also be brain breaks. So that's something that everyone would receive that could also benefit that social emotional learning. So let's look at the very first, the first component is self-awareness. And this is when we recognize our emotions and our values. as well as our strengths and our challenges. Self-awareness is also knowing when to adjust your perspective. One strategy that can be done is to help students identify and build their own individual assets and passions. So taking a self-inquiry of what am I good at and what am I passionate about and what are my values. There are activities like would you rather play outside or read a book? Games like those where students can just sit and think about what their values are and what are their likes. Encourage them to take that self-inquiry reports. One activity could be an ABC brainstorming me. And this is where students would write down a word that describes who they are for each letter of the alphabet. So we're going to take just a moment and I want you to do an ABC brainstorm about your own characteristics and take a moment to just reflect on your own assets and your own passions. We're going to take about 2 minutes and then we're going to share out any of the letters that you might want to share with the group. And I'm going to set a 2-minute timer. All right, we're going to take just another minute. Okay, does anyone want to share out or write a few maybe in the chat box? And I'll go first. When I think about taking a self-assessment about assets, the letter A, I would probably put ambitious for that one. Are there any more you can think of? Some of us may be bold or beautiful or creative. Quick activities like these can be embedded in art. Caring, that's a very good one. These can turn into art pieces for art grades or even activities we can do for health. These could be activities we could grade for health grades as well. Grateful. Oh, fun for F. Educated for E. Thank you guys for sharing. And if you still want to put some in the chat box, you can. When we do activities like these, motivated, awesome. When we do activities like these, it gets us thinking about our thinking. And that's what metacognition is. Metacognition is simply when we think about our thinking. And activating metacognition leads to mindfulness. Studies have found that mindfulness helps us differentiate our emotions, giving us a more information about how we feel about a situation. And this in turn makes it easier for us to know what strategies to use to navigate our emotions in a healthy way. And when we think about that metacognition cycle, we want to make sure that students are assessing the task at hand, whatever that may be, evaluating their strengths and their weaknesses, making a plan of action, a plan to approach the task at hand, applying strategies to achieve that task. And then after applying those strategies, we always want to be reflective. Encouraging students to be reflective helps just further strengthen their metacognition. This is the same approach that we take. It's very similar to the scientific method. It's very similar to the approach we take in teaching. After we have thought about our thinking and we have activated that metacognition, that mindfulness, once that's activated and students are being reflective, that's a great time to instill those SMART goals. And we've heard, many of us may have heard of SMART goals before. And we're just going to touch on when we can kind of embed SMART goals into our school year. So the S in SMART goals stands for specific. The M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for relevant, and T is for time bound. So with S, what exactly are we trying to achieve? What is your goal? How will you know when you have achieved that goal? Is it genuinely possible to achieve your goal? Is it attainable? Is it something that we can do or that you can do? And does it contribute to your, this says agencies, or does it contribute to your growth? Is it relevant? And then is it time bound? When do you want to achieve this by? In goal setting, and when to facilitate goal setting with your students, you can look at SMART goals after progress monitoring or taking screeners like the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year screener. Right after they take that screener, review that there's the scores with your students and have them have a moment to set up a SMART goal for the next 9 weeks. And then at the middle of the year, have them set up a SMART goal again for the next 9 weeks. Or after distributing progress reports. Every time they get a progress report, this is where you are. Or if we did beginning of the year SMART goals, and now we have a progress report. We're halfway to the middle of the year. Are you close to your goals? Do you want to revise your SMART goals? We would do that after progress reports. And then middle of the year has come. We may have taken a screener, and also we may have report cards. And when we look at those report cards, did you meet your goal? And if not, what can we do to reflect and refine our goal? Goals can be monthly, like long-term goals, or goals can be weekly. Goals could be, they could have behavior goals as well. Dedicated is a good one for D, yes. Self-management. We're at another core skill of SEL, core component. Self-management is when you manage your emotions and behaviors to achieve your goals. Here's a strategy that can be used in schools. And once again, that's helping students set those SMART goals while managing their emotions of doubt and fear. Another activity is to think about a goal, write down your expectations and your insecurities about that goal that causes you stress. And then after you do that, ball up that fear, that insecurity you have about that goal and throw it away. Because we're all going to have fears and insecurities or maybe even doubt of if we can do something, no matter if you're a child or an adult. But we want to create perseverance in our students. So, one, metacognition, think about your thinking, recognize the emotion that you feel, and then release it. Using the zone of regulation, being able to look at how you feel and then self-regulate is a skill that can be taught to students. So inside of a classroom, they have the zone of regulation where you can have, and this is just a simple poster or chart in the room where there's a blue one, a green one, a yellow one, a red one, and students can move their pictures into which zone they feel like they are at for today. And that's once again just them thinking about, how do I feel right now? Because once they identify that emotion, they're able to now regulate it and deal with it. The blue zone may be the sad zone, the bored zone, the tired zone, the sick zone. Green is when you're happy, you're focused, you're calm, you're proud. Yellow, you're worried, you're frustrated, you're silly, you're excited, you're anxious. And then the red zone is you're overjoyed, elated. It's those big emotions. You're panicked, you're angry, you're terrified. When we teach problem solving and self-regulation, that self-regulation and self-control can be learned, and the ability to control one's behavior is a key feature of success in school and in life. Here are ways that we can self-regulate our emotions. While there are countless ways that we can regulate our emotions, one of the most common methods seen in adults and maybe even children is suppression. Where we shove our emotions deep down inside in order to limit their expression. In suppression, people often suppress their emotions because they don't want to accept or experience them, which has been found to negatively affect a person's physical and mental health. Another way that we can self-regulate our emotions is to change our perspective. And this is another common method for regulating our emotions. It's called a reappraisal. That's when we change how we think about the situation in order to change how we feel. Studies have found that a reappraisal is associated with greater life satisfaction as well as less depression. And when we think about changing our perspective on something, if we feel like something is going to be, the first day of school is going to be the worst day ever, I just know it, I just feel it, and now I'm anxious about it, one way to self-regulate is to change our perspective. The first day of school, I might see familiar faces. And because I might see familiar faces, it might be an okay day. So I'm going to change my perspective and I'm going to go into this with an open mind. And we want students to be able to take that approach when they start to feel anxious and nervous about things. Another way to self-regulate is to write. Writing about our emotional experiences can increase our happiness, reduce anxiety and depression, and improve work and school performance. Writing about our experiences makes us active creators of our own life stories, and as a result, we feel more empowered to cope with challenges. Another way to self-regulate is to name the emotion. By labeling our emotions, we can decrease the amygdala response. And this is a real thing. This is the part of the brain that's associated with emotional responses. So if you name it, you can tame it, because there is just a part of our brain that's going to automatically kind of respond to our emotions. And then taking the approach of outside looking in. Imagine you were a fly on the wall watching your experience, or talk about your experience in third person. Studies have found that using self-distancing to understand one's emotions during difficult situations can decrease the intensity of the emotional experience and make us more likely to engage in constructive problem solving. Now that we know that a few ways to self-regulate, we can uh, teach these self-regulation skills to students and also have them be able to identify how they naturally self-regulate on their own so that they can think about their thinking and see if it's something that they may need to change, because maybe they suppress it and it builds up and comes out at a later date. And maybe writing might be a better way to self-regulate. And we want to be able to encourage that when we have situations in our buildings and in our classrooms where students are in situations and things are not going the way they expect. In the zone, once we understand our feelings and our zones, we can learn to use tools and strategies to manage our different zones in order to meet goals like doing schoolwork and other tasks, managing big feelings, and healthy relationships with others. The simple common language and visual structure of the zones of regulation helps make the complex skill of regulation more concrete for learners and those who support them. So having a place in the classroom where students can see the zones of regulation and then self-identify with where they are emotionally in those zones is one approach we can take to incorporate SEL in our classrooms. Also, having charts like these, what can I do? When I'm having a problem, I'm going to go to the problem solving wheel. And this might be somewhere posted in the classroom, maybe even next to the zone of regulation and all those emotions that we could feel. When I have a problem, maybe I need to walk away and let it go. Maybe I need to tell somebody to stop, or maybe I just need to stop. Maybe I can just go to a different activity. Or maybe if I'm struggling with one question on my assignment, maybe I should skip it and come back to it later, giving me more time to get support on whichever question or task may be stressing me out. Not sure what to do? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You can use an I message, which are affirmations. Apologize. Teaching children to apologize effectively in a healthy manner is also good supportive SEL. Talk it out, and we don't want to make people apologize, but we want to teach them how to do it and be able to do it at their own pace. Talk it out. Maybe you might want to suppress it. Maybe that's good for you. Ignoring the problem and I'll handle this later. I'm going to put it on the back burner. And then wait and just cool off. Another resource that we can have possibly in an area is our breathing boards. When students are just overwhelmed or maybe even stimming, breathing boards are research-based and proved to help in that area. And basically right here it says you're gonna breathe, let's start over here. You're gonna breathe in, and then you're gonna trace your finger around the board. And when you get here, you're gonna breathe out. And then you're gonna breathe in. When you come back around, you're gonna breathe out. And you go around that board as many times as you need to in order to self-regulate. And they have breathing boards in all different types of shapes. They have rainbow boards, some that look like trees, all different kind of designs. But that would be the purpose of this, is to just help with breathing. Much like Apple Watches, they have a breathe in, breathe out reminder. I guess when it feels your heart rate kind of spiking. Zen zones. So all of these activities could be compounded into a bucket, maybe, or maybe even put in a corner of a room. Using a Zen zone in the classroom can support positive behavior. The Zen zone is a behavior management tool, and it's designed, it's a designated table in the classroom or an area in the classroom where students reevaluate their behavior. It's not a timeout where students sit idle or in self-pity. It's not their permanent seat. But it's a place where they have items that a student can access to help them reevaluate their reaction to undesired situations. Teaching self-regulation can support mindfulness. And inside that corner, you may have fidgets or the squeezy balls for stress, breathing boards. Here's some more of those. And then how I feel charts. And to help me feel better, I will do which one of these activities. Now, as we move on, and we've talked about um, what is social emotional learning, how to identify with our emotions using mindfulness, and metacognition, how to support students by having a Zen zone area or a Zen zone bucket that just lets them be able to self-regulate their own reaction to situations. We want to look at responsible decision making. And this is another core part of social emotional learning and just emotional intelligence. And this is when we make ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behaviors with a realistic evaluation of the consequences of various actions. And then considering the well being of ourselves and others. So, strategies like using decision making frameworks would help in this situation. And this activity is called List the Pros and Cons. You have a decision to make, and you can list everything that could go right if you do this, or everything that could go wrong if you do this as well. Another activity is called ICED, and that's when you identify the problem, you create alternatives, you evaluate the alternatives, and then you decide on the best solution. Another framework is called SODA. And SODA stands for situation, options, disadvantages, advantages, and solutions. So when students are faced with problems that they need to solve, we will want them to take one of these approaches to solving their problems. We're going to dive in deeper with SODAs today. And there's a quick video where this guy's going to go over some of the family's process in using SODAs. This is something that can also be shared with parents at PTA meetings, where they also take this skill home and just use it throughout their daily lives when reaching problems.
My name's Anthony. I'm a father of two girls. Sometimes being a parent is like being a detective. You have to really work at figuring out why your children make the decisions they do. Have you ever asked your child why they did something? They speak acronym. S stands for situations, O for options, D for disadvantages, A for advantages, and the final S for solution. Let's go through each step and I'll give you an example. First, the situation. In order to resolve an issue, you have to identify the situation. It's important to describe the situation in detail. Be as specific as you can. For example, let's imagine your child came home and told you another kid in his class that he didn't like started to throw paper at him. You could write the situation like, I was in my English class with a kid that I don't like, and then he started to throw paper at me. After you have clarified the situation, move next to options. It's best to think of at least 3 options. In this example, your child came up with the following 3 options. Number 1, throw the paper back at the kid. Number 2, tell the teacher what the kid is doing. Number 3, ignore him. It's that third option that seems to be a challenge for most kids to come up with. Always explore multiple options, even if it seems weird or silly to you, so your child knows they have choices. Using the 3 options from the previous step, begin writing down the disadvantages to each of those options. List as many disadvantages as you can for each one. In this example, your child may think that throwing the paper back might hit someone else, and they won't like them. If the child tells the teacher option number 2, a disadvantage might be he'll be considered a tattletale. Once you have finished that, have your child do the same thing, but focus this time on the advantages of each option. In this example, your child may think an advantage to option number 1 is, it'll make them stop. Or an advantage to option number 3 is, I'll look cool because I don't care. It's always helpful to list as many advantages as possible. Now it's time to look through the entire worksheet. By choosing the best advantages and eliminating the worst disadvantages, your child will begin to narrow down the best option. Once your child figures out which option works best, they will come to a solution. In this example, the child decided to use options number 2 and 3 as a solution. Yes, your child may come to more than one solution. You will ignore him and tell the teacher if he does it again. Let's watch a whole family use this skill during a family meeting. They're trying to figure out what kind of pet they want to get.
Bueno, familia, ahora que ya decidimos escoger una mascota, vamos a escoger cuál es la mejor para nosotros, ¿verdad? Y vamos a usar la técnica SODA para ver cuál es la mejor. Gracias. Y con una sonrisa, me encanta eso.
And in this, you can see a family discussing what kind of pet they're going to get. So it's a problem. We don't know what type of pet we're going to buy. So let's use sodas. In the end, they find out that a lion would not be the best decision for them to make, and neither would a dog. They ended up going with a cat. So I'm going to go forward to the next slide.
Hey, my name's Anthony. I'm a father of 2 girls.
We're going to keep going one more time. All right, let's look at the next component of SEL, and that is relationship skills. And this is the ability to build positive relationships, especially with diverse individuals and groups, using a variety of methods such as active listening, communication, conflict and resolution skills. And these skills also include the ability to resist pressure and to seek out and offer help to people in need. Have students work in teams often is a great strategy to use to help students build relationship skills. Have them work in teams and groups, change those groups that they may work in for different reasons. Often have them turn and talk and have discussions and conversations often. Social awareness. This is showing understanding and empathy for others, particularly with people from different backgrounds than one own. Engage students in community service projects. Read articles on News ELA, where they can read about things that are happening in today's world, but on their own lexile level. That's a component that can be done using News ELA. And that can be added to your Clever account if you're interested in News ELA. Some of you may have middle school students, and middle school minds are truly a work in progress. The prefrontal cortex, or the part of the brain used for rational decisions, is still developing. While adolescents are still growing and developing, learning social emotional skills can help empower them to make better choices along the way. So in middle school, this is definitely something that we want to make sure we instill into our classrooms, into our buildings, because they need it the most here. And if they have not received this social emotional learning support in elementary school, you can really see the effects of not being able to self-regulate and make positive decisions, and an increase in maybe undesired behaviors to situations there. Social emotional strategies for middle school kids. Having check-in and check-outs. How do you feel? Morning meetings, clubs, sports, and activities. SEL question of the day. And that could be a simple, how would you feel if you got to take a vacation anywhere in the world and they got to just reflect on their own feelings about things? Emotional check-ins, weekly goal reviews, daily greetings, supported study hall, journal writing, and then class meetings. Very similar to the morning meetings. Maybe you see them in the afternoon. Unlocking student success. So students open up when they know you care. By establishing a safe and nurturing environment, students will be willing to open up about how they feel. Ultimately, making it possible to plant seeds of reflection. Rhythm is also a tool that you can use. I think this is one that the district may have provided for us. And Rhythm provides immediate feedback regarding the well-being of students and staff. And Rhythm gives schools an opportunity to empower all students to practice healthier habits. So if you have Rhythm in your school, or your school system provides that, let students take a couple moments in the morning just to identify with how they feel, and then also check in and see how they're feeling, and see if you notice any patterns to how they're feeling, because this tool can help us triangulate some of that data while we look at behavior and while we look at academics or whatnot. And then as you see some of the responses from your students, think back to that Zen zone and the self-regulation strategies and activities, and maybe provide them with an intervention, an activity for them to do that might help them practice a different way of self-regulating their emotions. And like I said, this can be embedded in your art and your health time in your classrooms. And you cannot pour from an empty bucket. Always be reflective with yourself. Am I happy? If not, how can I relieve my stress? If you have nothing in your bucket, you will not be able to give anything to anyone else. So we want to make sure that we are being a bucket filler to people, and we want to make sure we're being reflective of our own needs, to where we're not emptying out everything we have in our bucket to give to others without replenishing it with the things that relieve our own stress and regulate our own emotions. There is a SEL teacher guide, because there are adults who may not have mastered these skills as well. And in order to teach students about SEL, there is a guide that just helps us support them in that. So in order to just manage stress and create a safe and supportive classroom environment, there are skills and mindsets the adult will need to effectively embody, teach, model, and coach SEL for students, because they're looking at how we handle problems. We're doing a lot of think alouds. We do a lot of modeling when we come to a problem or even an undesired behavior in a classroom. And the overall well-being and emotional state of adults in school settings can be regulated with these components below. So examining our own identities, exploring our emotions, cultivating compassionate curiosity. And that's us caring. That's that C word we would put down when we looked at our ABC brainstorm. Compassionate curiosity is asking those questions. Why is this student acting this way? Why does this student feel this way? How can I help this student? What does this student need to get over this emotion? How can I help them identify when they're having these big emotions? You may have students in your classroom that have anxiety just to come to school every day because they don't know how their classmates are going to treat them. And what can I do to help this student feel more comfortable around their classmates? You may have a student who may have an identified aspect to themselves that just alters their emotions. And maybe they would benefit from having something in their hand that they can fidget with so that they're not banging on a desk. Maybe just something soft in their hand so that they're able to regulate that anxiety or those emotions or that stimming. And then just establishing that balance and boundaries, and having optimism about the situation. Ideally, people would want to do what's expected of them. And it's just us teaching them what those expectations are and helping them to reach those expectations when they just can't regulate their emotions to get there. So I'm going to post this link inside of the Google Classroom. Not Google Classroom, sorry. Inside of the Zoom link. And I'll take you through the things that are listed inside of it. So here's our chat. And we're going to paste that there. And then I'm also going to screenshot this for attendance purposes because I do not have the sign in. Okay, and then I'm going to go back here. Inside that link, oh, here we go. There are a lot of practices for promoting SEL for educators. So each one of these components, there are links that you can click on. When we examine our identity, what do we do and what kind of activities can we engage in to support that? It has all of the components that we talked about. And let's go down. We're just going to skim through. Oh no, maybe I need to click it. 31 pages, they got to be here. Okay, here it goes. These are the links. So once you get down here, examine identity, which is one of the components, it says define values and pursue purpose, investigating our power, our privilege, uncovering our biases, reflecting on our work styles. And all of these are activities we can do to operate in this component. And then it goes down, and then we have another component. And once again, these blue links are the activities. And I'm going to go back here. And like I said, these are things that we can do collectively as a grade level. We can do this with our school. We can do this with ourselves, just to make sure that we're embodying these components so that we can teach SEL and model SEL to our students. Oh, and I want to say that's it. Stop sharing. And that is all. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It is 4:25. Were there any questions or comments? And you can write those in the chat box if you would like, and I will answer them. Thank you so much. Yes, I try to give a lot of resources about this topic. We hear about it, and I just want to give us something that's kind of useful. Oh goodness, I'm all in all of my slides. Okay, let me screenshot your email, and I'll make sure you got this link. No problem. Oh, and I guess I will turn my video. There I go. Thank you. Y'all have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for joining today. Okay, and I'm going to end our slide now. Thank you so much.